Welcome to the Agency Insider podcast. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, CEO Page Traffic. And today we have a special guest, Gabriella Covay, a digital marketing expert and the founder of Bright Valley Marketing. Gabriela has been instrumental in helping brands achieve high authority links and boost their online presence through innovative digital PR strategies. Let's dive into her journey and insights. Gabriela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Navneet. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So we'll jump right into your background and journey. So can you share a bit about your background and what led you to start Bright Valley Marketing?
Yes, absolutely. So I actually dived into the digital marketing world in 2009. I was fresh out of college, and my mom and dad at the time, they were starting their own family daycare business, and they needed a website and they needed customers. And they're like, well, we don't know how to do any of this. So why don't you help us? You don't have a job. You just got out of college. I'm like, okay, great. I don't know. I don't know any of it. I don't know how to do any of this, but okay, I'll figure it out. So I built their website and I started diving into the SEO world and learning all about it. So I was able to optimize their website with meta keywords and all that fun stuff that used to work back then. And they started getting a lot of traffic and customers through the door. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Like this is the future. I need to start diving into this. So fast forward a few years later, I, work for a small digital marketing company here in Sacramento. And then that, I gained a lot of experience. It was quite challenging because I was still pretty new, to the SEO world and all that. But after I would say like a year, I decided to just freelance and go on my own and just branch out and try to be an entrepreneur. And that was 10 years ago. And I never looked back. That was Bright Valley Marketing. We're 10 years strong now.
Okay. And so I'm sure, like any entrepreneur, we all face challenges. So what were the initial challenges you faced when you entered digital marketing, and then what were the challenges you faced when you started your own business, and how did you overcome?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the beginning, like I said, like I was a freelancer, so I was doing everything on my own. It was crazy. I was starting to get burned out. There was just there were so many aspects to digital marketing. Keeping up with all the changes that were happening at the time became overwhelming. And I realized like the way to grow my business is to start hiring people. And I think the biggest challenge was kind of letting go of that control, because when you do everything yourself, you know exactly what the end product is going to look like, what goes into it. And I think making that leap of faith and just saying, look, I need to hire people that share the same values as me and deliver the same quality of work, that proved to be pivotal in my business. And that's what allowed me to scale and grow and be able to serve more customers.
Okay. So let's dive into digital PR. So when exactly did you move from your agency into digital PR?
Yeah, so the transition happened roughly around 2000, end of 2015, beginning of 2016. We had a lot of local, like more the local SEO clients, because we started out in Santa Cruz, California, and we served a lot of the local customers there. And a lot of them were getting coverage in the local media, So we're like, okay, well, this is really great. They're getting a backlink from like the Santa Cruz Sentinel, and that's like really hard to get. And at the time, everyone was still doing all the guest posting, like link insertions, all that stuff. And I saw like, wait a minute, what if we just, we take this that's like local and we apply the strategy and branch out and get other companies similar coverage, but go national and get national coverage. Because I realized like the way that things were done at the time with all the link building that was taking place, it was not sustainable. I saw the techniques were quite spammy. We were still, we were guest posting here and there and doing the link insertions, and it was working at the time. But I realized, look, this is not gonna work in the long run. Like we need to do things authentically and build the type of links that are hard to replicate and hard to earn and that are white hat. So I've always been a proponent of doing things the right way, even though it's the harder way most of the time, and it requires more effort. But in the end, that's what pays off. So that's when we started like really diving into the digital PR world and focusing on that more and more. But it wasn't until I would say 2 years ago that it really started taking off, and people really started to begin investing in this service because they actually started seeing the value that digital PR provides. And it wasn't something I had to like explain to them a million times and like convince them that why they should do it. They saw, and they understood that the old way of doing link building is not going to be sustainable and make a difference in the long run.
Okay. So I mean, of course, for some of our listeners who might not know what digital PR is, so can you explain what digital PR is and how it can be beneficial for our clients as well as agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. So digital PR in a nutshell is the process of getting media coverage for your company, for your company's website, which usually results in backlinks, right? Those high authority, hard to replicate backlinks from these trusted media sources like CBS News, ABC News, NBC, etc. And the way that you usually earn those backlinks is by producing newsworthy content that the media is interested in covering. And when journalists do cover your story, they will reward you, they will credit you with a backlink usually to your website, sometimes TV coverage too.
Okay, so of course, so I understand because something digital PR you see as something more sustainable than guest post and niche edits at that time, and that's what you decided to. So I mean, you had no prior experience, so did you took some coaching or it just on the job you learned on the way?
So it was a little bit of both. At the time I met my partner, my business partner, that came from a PR background, and I came from an SEO background, so we combined forces and we created this service essentially. um and I came to the table with an SEO perspective. I was thinking about backlinks, I was thinking about do follows, all that stuff, are we the anchor text, everything. So we kind of combined forces, and then we just took off from there. Yeah.
Okay. And so I was taking a podcast with the BB Raven, and she speaks very highly about you, and that's where the conversation went. And she said, "Yeah, so I mean," and she told that your digital PR campaigns has been quite successful, and of course I've seen. So could you walk us through the process of creating a campaign from idea to execution? So, or do you want me to give you a hypothetical situation?
I'll definitely walk you through. But first, I want to say something about BB and link building. Link building still really, really very much works. Like the guest posting, if done the right way, and BB does things the right way, right? Not in the spammy ways that people used to do back in the day. So it's still very much effective, and I don't want to completely discount that technique because it's still very much relevant. But you just have to do it authentically in the right way. So, and BB's awesome. But okay, back to the digital PR process. Yeah, so we break down our process into 3 phases essentially. So the first phase is ideation. That's when we sit at the drawing board and we come up with all these ideas that are relevant to the client's website, to their industry, to their niche. And then the second phase is we actually go into production. We gather the data. So we ideally what we do is run a surveys of usually about 3,000 respondents, because that provides us with a really original insights that no one has produced before, and it provides us with the greatest creative flexibility. But sometimes we also just look at publicly available data sources, bls.gov. There's so many government databases that are free for anyone to use, and it just requires time and effort to dive in, look at the numbers, crunch the data, and see if there are any trends. And then once we have that, we illustrate all of our findings in a nice infographic. We call that like a linkable asset. We break down the key findings. We sometimes provide implications about the study, where we provide commentary about our findings. And basically, then we create a press release that we end up distributing to relevant media outlets and journalists that might be interested in covering the story. So we do the prospecting during that phase as well. And then the last phase is outreach. That's when we, go and reach out to these journalists and pitch them the press release and and the data and follow up with them, schedule sometimes TV interviews, because those do happen quite frequently with our campaigns and clients are interested in that. That provides other ancillary benefits.
Right.
And like roughly like a, from start to finish is like 6 to 8 week process essentially for a digital PR campaign.
So this linkable assets gets published on the client website?
That's right. Yeah. Yes, it gets published on the client's website, and usually a journalist will link to the client's homepage, but also that linkable asset page. So you get essentially 2 links in one for the most part.
Okay. And so when you're doing these ideations, so does the current trends also comes into picture, piggy bank on something current? For example, a lot of brands did when the Barbie movie came out, so they piggy bank on that something. So do you guys also do in that ideation process?
Absolutely. We always consider what we call the state of society. We always consider, what is happening in the media right now, what's going on with the weather, what are people talking about? And if there's a way that we can link the campaign to something that's happening in society, then that creates a stronger relevancy. So journalists are more eager to pick that story up because it relates so much to what's happening here in the States. We still have inflation going on, even though I think people are saying it's like decreasing, but still, I mean, people are always complaining about the cost of grocery items. It's pretty bad.
It's have gone really expensive. I was there last year, so right, I can know.
Yeah, I just bought like a matcha latte. It literally cost me $7.50 for like a tiny cup of matcha. Like, it's eating up my wallet. Yeah, so ideas like that relate to society are really important. What happened this past summer is we had a lot of heat waves here in the States, rolling heat waves, just nonstop. It was scorching hot. So I think we did like 5 or 6 campaigns for clients in different industries that we're talking about heat waves, so how heat waves were affecting people's sleep, how heat waves were affecting pest activity. So that was one of the campaigns that we did about how pest activity increases during the heat because it increases the insects' reproductive cycles. And when insects are, increasing and proliferating, they enter our homes. So we did that campaign for a pest control expert, and that did really well. So there's just so many things you have to be aware of that are happening at the moment and try to come up with something that's related. And it's not always, I mean, sometimes there's no, you don't always find something that's like that relevant to society. And then that's totally okay too, as long as the idea is newsworthy and is insightful and elicits like an emotional reaction from journalists and the readers as well.
Okay. So when you do a digital PR campaign, does all of them become successful or some of them bombed?
Most of them are quite successful, but we definitely have instances when campaigns kind of flop. And in those cases, it's usually due to a number of factors. Either we timed our outreach too late or too early, or there's factors that are beyond our control, like things happening in the world where the media, there was actually a campaign that we did about like a ranking of universities and stuff like that. But then at the time, right when we started outreach, the media started covering all the university protests happening. And it was just really bad timing. Like no one picked up the campaign very much because they were focused so heavily on all the protests and covering all that. So we're like, okay, well, that's not something.
The campaign, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely factors that are beyond our control, but for the most part, we do we do quite well. And if a campaign flops for whatever reason, we end up doing another one, complimentary one for the client, because we've got targets that we need to hit, and we always do those no matter what.
This was the failure, but in your experience, what are the key elements that actually make a digital PR campaign successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about relevancy to society. That's a big one. But beyond that, there's, again, the emotional reaction aspect of it, the emotional connection that people have to the campaign. And oftentimes people really react to campaigns that elicit a sense of pride, like, oh, I'm so proud that our city was ranked #1 for being the safest for, to raise a family or something like that. So pride, feeling a sense of pride. Shock also works really well. Like, oh my God, I can't believe, this data shows that blah, 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 blah,
Right.
Yeah, joy, happiness, the feel good stories, the cute stories work really well. Also, negative stories, unfortunately, tend to work really well. The ones that we have a lot of success with are the stories that warn people of something, like experts warn of an impending, insect surge, which that was like kind of the campaign that we did for that pest control client that work really well. So those types of stories work well. Stories that have a practical aspect that, people can, they can actually take that story and say, oh, well, this is interesting. Maybe I should, take my child to this suburb because it was voted
Right.
as being, one of the top rated suburbs for, raising a family or something like that.
Right.
Maybe I should move there. So if there's like a practical aspect that can help people out, that works really well as well. And another one is stories that dive into people's hidden desires, their thoughts, their values. We call those psychographic insights. And those campaigns tend to do really well. So for example, one of the campaigns that we did was when do people think it is acceptable to start day drinking? At what time? And we broke that down. This was done for a rehab center, actually. Yeah, that campaign did really well, and we broke down the results by state. And in
Mhm.
some states, people thought it was acceptable to start drinking at like noon. We're like, whoa, that's not good. But yeah, so there's a lot of interesting insights that can come out of surveys specifically that tap into people's thoughts and desires. And like where would that was actually about death, which is kind of a morbid subject, but it did so well because we asked like where would you scatter your ashes if you could scatter them anywhere? And some people were saying like the New York Yankee like stadium or something, or like a sports stadium, and places like that. And that showed that people had a really strong connection to those places, even though it's probably like very much illegal to do that in some of these places. But it still tapped into people's like dreams and all that. And that works really well. Those types of
Right.
stories do really well because it's so interesting.
Yes. So, and does digital PR work for all industries?
Yeah, absolutely. It does work for all industries. However, I have to say that some industries that are very, 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 very specific, like let's say you're like a airline parts manufacturing company, right? Like that's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
You need to think beyond just your very specific niche. You have to think about what does your niche represent. Step away a few degrees from your core industry. You're in the travel industry essentially, right? So you're not just going to do a campaign about airline parts. You're going to do a campaign about travel, traveling by airplane, things like that. So think beyond just your industry and think about what would actually get coverage, what type of campaign would get coverage.
And how can agencies use digital PR to build relationship with journalists and influencers?
Yeah, sure. So
Do
when
they relationship count?
yes, when we do digital PR, while we do have some relationships with journalists, most of the time the journalists that we reach out to, we have no idea who they are. There's just so many of them because the story gets coverage because it's so strong that regardless of whether you know the journalist or not, they're gonna cover it. But if you do want to build relationships with journalists, once you get coverage, thank the journalist. Say, hey, thank you so much for featuring us, featuring our story. We're always available here if you need our insights in the future about any topic that interests you. So that's how you kind of build relationships with them. Make sure to follow them on their social media profiles. They're usually on a variety of platforms, X,
Okay.
Instagram, yeah, LinkedIn too as well. So definitely connect to them there. Engage with them, like their posts. Make sure that they see you, that you're engaging with them, and that kind of keeps them at the top of their mind. Keeps you at the top of their mind.
So over this digital PR, there comes the influencers. So have you thought or do you do anything which counts these influencers, for example, on TikTok or Instagram? So have you thought about or do you do some mix of these?
Yeah, we don't do like influencers and stuff. Yeah. No, we just always identify journalists based on
Okay.
our media database and also through manual prospecting as well. But yeah, we don't do like the influencer marketing and all that. I know that that's obviously a very effective avenue. It's kind of like an own beast. Gotta
Right.
tackle
So
it.
do you go after do follow links or no follow, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, so the majority of the links that we do get are follow, which is good, but we keep track of all the links essentially. So we keep track of whether they're no follow, whether they're do follow, whether they're syndicated, what their DR is, the traffic that they get, and then if they're indexed. So most of the times all the links are indexed. You'll find sometimes a couple of duds in there that are like not indexed. And if they're not indexed, they don't count because Google doesn't count them. They don't exist essentially in Google's eyes. So we don't count them either. We don't count syndicated links, even though those have value in themselves. Like they drive up the or referral traffic, which is nice. But from an SEO standpoint, we don't really count syndicated links. We don't count no follow links, even though like I'm seeing all these like debates online. Like, yeah, no follow does matter. Okay, it
Yeah.
does a little bit, but follow obviously matters more. So we're gonna stick to follow and count that towards our target. Yeah.
So that day I was on another podcast, and so there was someone who also does digital PR. He says if the journalists don't do no follow, then they email them to. If the journalists do no follow, they generally email them requesting a do follow, and then they know, okay, for this type of publication you need to email this guy to get it do follow. So is that something happens in your case too?
Yeah, we try to reach out as much as possible to get them to fix those types of links.
Okay.
Even links where they like sometimes they'll link to the wrong, like the URL will contain errors or something, and the link doesn't even work. So we reach out to them, and they end up, for the most part, they end up fixing everything. So that's not really a problem. But journalists, they do their own thing. They don't. No matter if you can nudge them, but in the end they decide. So there's only so much you can do, and you don't want to piss them off.
Right, absolutely. So does the digital PR sometime goes in a way in offline media as well, in like real publications, or they are mostly online?
Yeah, sometimes it does go into actual physical publications as well. Usually it's mostly online just because everything's online, and that's
Right.
where the media outlets get their readership. Yeah, so but in some cases they get published in like magazines and stuff like that, which is kind of nice. So all those are kind of like, we call them like ancillary benefits of digital PR campaigns, where you get coverage in like an actual physical magazine, or you get TV coverage like in a primetime segment, which doesn't like directly affect your SEO, but in the end, like those media outlets will post that video like on YouTube or something. So that ties into SEO in some capacity indirectly. So yeah.
So has anything changed after the Google March update and recent updates, or nothing changed in your approach as such?
The approach is more or less the same, I would say, but we're definitely paying more close attention to our linkable asset page. We're trying to create more of like a robust and comprehensive page that outlines the key findings and the implications, and we're really trying to make that page, like a solid page. Before we would just like have like an infographic, and that worked, right? Like here's our page with an infographic, that's a linkable asset. But now it's like requiring us to go a little bit deeper to really make that page as helpful in Google's eyes and to the readers as possible, so that it's not looked upon as like a thin content page. So that's definitely, we're like amping up the quality of everything, I would say.
So do you take care EE80 factors also while doing digital PR, or creating a linkable asset?
Yeah, we always keep those aspects in mind. Like we will work with the client. Usually the client has their own like dev team and team of like content writers and whatnot. And we kind of guide them in the direction of like, okay, here's how you should structure the post. Make sure that there's an author, like an author bio at the bottom. Make sure that it contains like relevant internal links. Don't be too salesy. And we always try to integrate keywords, SEO keywords, if it works, right? So we'll do a little bit of research and like identify, using Ahrefs, for example, a relevant keywords that we can incorporate in the linkable asset. And sometimes, the linkable asset itself will rank for many keywords. We did a campaign about like the best cities in America to get pizza. I know it's like a very simple campaign. It was like based on Google reviews, public data, right? So we created that linkable asset page, and that page was ranking for our client for like over 400 keywords for like the best cities for pizza, like all these variations. So they're just giving a bunch of traffic to their site from that linkable asset itself, not even talking about, like the backlinks that they got and everything.
Now, so clearly after this Google new updates, has your digital PR clients increased or decreased? I'm guessing increased.
Yeah, we've definitely noticed an increase for sure. A little bit of a drop off, and this happened with the last HCU update, drop off in like affiliate marketing clients, like the pure content sites, because those got hammered. I know that some are starting to recover a little bit, but many are still not. But the clients that we are getting more of now are like the actual businesses, the ones that provide some sort of tangible service or product.
Right.
Companies, technology companies, businesses, yeah, all sorts of online businesses, e-commerce sites, etc. So yeah, we're seeing an uptick in that for sure.
So with the chat GPT and everything, do you try to get or interact, put some data with chat GPT, or how does it blend into digital PR campaigns of your, or it does not?
Yeah. So we do have a GPT bot that we've created where we fed a bunch of like ideas into it, of ideas of successful campaigns that we've done in the past. I would say that it's a very much a hit or miss with ChatGPT at the moment. It'll get things right, and sometimes it'll spark some ideas based on what it comes up with. But oftentimes it's just like, like we have to constantly fine tune it. It just requires even more work than we would normally just spend brainstorming manually like among ourselves. But I think with the advent of AI now and all these chatbots, it's gonna make digital PR easier and harder in some senses. From like a data crunching perspective, I feel like we're gonna get services, AI services that and products and services that come out that can quickly analyze vast amount of data from like public databases and come up with trends. You can ask the AI like, is there a pattern here? Like, what does this show? And where are the states with the highest blah, 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 blah. So that's going to make things faster to some degree. But I think also at the moment, people are a little bit overly reliant on AI, especially like when they're doing like link building and all that, pitching journalists with all this like chat GPT generated content. Like that's making it a little harder for all of us, because journalists like are getting flooded with all the spam in their inbox. And you really, to do digital PR the right way, you have to really stand out now, because you literally, like, journalists will get like 300 pitches a day, and that's like a lot.
Right. So how big is your team now?
So our team, we've got a core team, and I always like don't have the specific answers is, because I'm like, I need to know exactly how big our team is. But we're like about 15 people at the
Okay.
moment. Yeah, we've got some part-timers, full-timers. Yeah, but
All
that's
based in the U.
yeah. We're kind of all distributed. So a lot of us are based in the U.S. I am. We've got people in all over everywhere. Essentially, Lisbon, in Portugal, in Serbia, in yeah, all over the place.
So let's talk about some advices and lessons you learned, and the advices you could give to the businesses who are interested in digital PR. So, I mean, you told me about the campaigns which didn't go and went well. For example, the one which bombed because of the trends. Yes. So what is the most valuable lesson you have learned from a campaign that didn't go as planned?
Yeah, I would say just always be mindful of the timing. Know when to time your outreach, because that will make or break your campaign. And be mindful of what's happening in the media, and if anything that's happening in the media that might impact the performance of your campaign. Be mindful of other companies that are doing a similar campaign as you, because that can also affect your performance, right? If multiple companies are doing the same story, that's gonna decrease your performance, because journalists are getting bombarded with the same pitch. So be mindful of that. And yeah, I think that would be the biggest one. I would say timing is really, really important. Yeah.
Okay. And what advice would you give to the agencies that are looking to get started in digital PR?
Yeah, so for those agencies, really think it's a great idea to work with like an established agency and get some campaigns going, and you can kind of see their process. Like if you were to work with us, you will see the whole entire process from start to finish and get an idea of what the structure of everything looks like, and you can start to reverse engineer our work. Go ahead, I don't mind, and then train your
Okay.
teams internally to to try to replicate that. You can also look at the major companies out there that run PR campaigns like literally on a daily basis. We're talking about, Wallet Hub, Bankrate, Consumer Affairs. I mean, there's just so many of them out there that constantly get featured in the media, and they're always putting out all these campaigns. So that's a really great way to get started. See what they're doing and kind of piggyback on that, and do something similar, not exactly a duplicate, but do something similar that's obviously relevant to your website and company. But yeah, you can get so much inspiration from what's already been done.
Okay. And of course, in a world where personal branding is becoming more increasingly important, what advice would you give to someone just starting their personal brand? And have you done any digital marketing campaign or a digital PR campaign where a person would come from an angle that this is for my personal brand and not just for the business?
Yeah, so if you're trying to grow like your personal brand, I mean, I would say just be very, very authentic and do things in your way. Don't try to be a copy and paste of someone else. I think that's really important. And I think, yeah, so when it comes to personal branding, we have done campaigns for specific personal brands, but they had to again be appealing to the general consumer media. So if you're like a small blogger and you're trying to do a digital PR campaign for yourself, that can be kind of challenging. But if you already have like a sort of like an established personal brand, then it's much easier to get coverage for those types of sites, because journalists will trust that site more. Yeah. So it's all about kind of looks, and professionalism and the perception of professionalism.
Right. Uh, Mentorship can be incredibly powerful. So, how has it influenced your career, and what advice would you give to someone seeking to find the right mentor? I mean, did you had a mentor? First of all, I should be asking that.
Yeah, yes and no. So not in the traditional sense, like I met with someone on a regular basis and we talked
Okay.
about these like business things, but I followed a lot of the people in the industry, like in the SEO industry specifically, that were doing things the right way. So, you probably heard of like Brian Dean from Backlinko back in the day. Like he was, doing things the right way, and the way that he was creating his blogs and everything was like so focused on high quality over quantity, really spoke to me. So I adopted a lot of like what the techniques that he was implementing for his own website at the time, and I took those and I applied it to my own business. And so basically just, yeah, like I followed the people that I was drawn to that were doing things successfully in the way that I would do them, and that helped me a lot in business. But I mean, if you have the opportunity to have like an actual mentor that you can speak to on a regular basis, that's gold. I mean, it would have been so nice to have talked to Brian Dean, like, hey, Brian, I
Right. Now, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and changes in the digital marketing or digital PR?
Yeah, so I am part of a couple of industry groups, SEO Signals Lab, that's like in the Facebook group, all the search engine land. Um, are we getting a background echo?
A bit, something went wrong?
Can you hear me? I'm getting.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I follow all these different groups online. I regularly follow people on LinkedIn that are publishing, interesting insights about what's going on. Loving Lily Ray's posts. Yeah, so just really trying to stay on top of what industry experts are posting, and what they're talking about, what works and what doesn't work.
So, are there any favorite SEO or digital PR? I don't even know digital PR has tools, but do you have any SEO tools or tools of the trade which you like using, or would you like to recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so I mean, Ahrefs is obviously really great. There's, if you're doing digital PR, there's different media databases you can use. We use Cision Media Database, but that could be kind of pricey if you have to buy a license. You can use Prowly. It's like the more month-to-month budget-friendly option if you're just getting started with
That's
digital.
the SEM Rush, right? I guess
Are they what?
it's owned by SEM Rush.
I'm not sure. I'm not
Okay.
sure about that. Could be. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that, and also, set up Google Alerts for your brand. That's free. It's a
Right.
free tool. Make sure you're tracking what people are saying online about your brand, and that's how you can also track coverage that comes in that features your company. You can easily track that with Google Alerts. We also use internal tools as well, but that's like Google Alerts is free, so why not?
Right. Right. How do you see the field of digital PR evolving in the next few years, and what are some of the trends we can expect to see? I know one you said that journalists are getting bombarded by 300 pitches, but how do you otherwise see it
Yeah,
evolving?
so I definitely see, again, it just ties all back into AI. I think there's just so many different avenues that AI is going to open up for digital PR, from data crunching to creating press releases to basically streamlining the entire process. So I feel like there's going to be so many products and services out there that we're going to have to try out. Really, AI is just revolutionizing everything, and I'm kind of excited to see what comes out. At the same time, a little nervous.
So Bright Valley Marketing is where you do all of this, or does it offers any other services beyond digital PR?
Yeah, so digital PR is sort of the main service that we started focusing on, in the past couple years. But we also do SEO, of course. We do it quite well.
Okay.
It's all very related. I feel like it's not really a separate service. It's all very much related, and Google Ads as well. So those are kind of our main services. Content marketing, we're pretty good at creating HCU friendly content.
Is there a thing like that?
I don't know. I mean, we always we're like, okay, does this, content include original insights? Does it go beyond what the competition is already saying? So it's just everything we do is really high quality.
Okay, and what are the future goals of Bright Valley Marketing?
Yeah, so future goals, that's a good question. I think, getting back on social media and creating YouTube videos, that's one of the immediate goals, I would say, because it was something I was doing for a while. It just required a lot of time and energy, but now it's like, okay, I really like it, and I feel like it reaches a lot of people that I wouldn't otherwise be able to reach with with our services, our products, and yeah, so social media, getting more out there than before. And next year, we're starting to look at going to different conferences and all that,
Right.
and really meeting up with some of these people that I've known for years. And I'm kind of a hermit, so I like to stay at home and not get out
Right.
much.
That's how all we digital entrepreneurs are.
Yeah,
Most of us to work tend to have a better relationship with the computer.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So thank you, Gabriela, for sharing your insights and experience with us today. It was a pleasure having you on the Agency Insider podcast. And where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, cool. Well, it was definitely a pleasure as well, Navneet. Our website is brightvalleymarketing.com. They can go there, or you guys can also check out my LinkedIn profile. Just type in Gabriella Covay and add me on there, or send me an email at Gabby at brightvalleymarketing.com. So those are the kind of the top places. I'm also on YouTube too. So YouTube.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you again, Gabriela, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the Agency Insider podcast for more insightful conversations. Until next time. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.